Hi and welcome. My name is Lucas Kölz. I'm one of the artists here at Mind Games Interactive. Feel free to check out our website if you're interested in what we're working on. And today we have another video tutorial for you guys. This one was highly requested and it's about the moss effect on these rocks. So first let's take a look at what we're talking about here. On these rocks we can see they all have a moss layer. These are multiple instances of the same mesh. And if we move them, we see that the moss is actually world aligned. Also, if we rotate them, it's always on top. And since it's world aligned, it blends really well with the other rocks. So this is a really fast way of just bashing them in together and then fitting with each other instantly, and it gets rid of a ton of seams and stuff and just makes them blend really well. Also, we have a bunch of options in the material instance. Let's open that up. Let me bring that over. It was on the second screen. Just take a look at the options. So most of these we can ignore because, of course, this is a material setup for our whole scanned asset pipeline. So we're not going to take a look at all of them. What we're going to take a look at is the world-aligned blend, because that, in this case, is our moss. And what we have the tiling of the moss, of course. If I put a higher value in here, it gets less tiled. So let's put this back to 20. And then we have, well, maybe let's try something like 15. That looks kind of nice, gives it a little bit more structure. And then we have the opacity. It's really clear. If it's at 0, you can't see it. So this is what this would actually look like without the moss. It's not as nice, I'd say. Like this looks pretty bad actually, and now it looks awesome. So this, I don't know. I really like this effect. It gives some nice plain areas, kind of some space, takes away the noise, makes them blend. Anyway, let's move on. We have the world blend max, and that's really cool. So if I put this to 0, it's actually gone. And now if I increase this, let me do this way. It looks cooler. We can see the moss grow from the top all the way until they're completely covered in moss. I think that's really cool. And this doesn't just use the geometry, this obviously uses the normal map. So all these red areas, that's actually part of the moss shader, because moss isn't just the green part, it actually kind of miscolorates around the green part in kind of a reddish way. So that's also something we're gonna take a look at. So increasing that increases this effect and puts it on normal map on all the little cracks and stuff. Just gives it a really, really cool effect. Also, what I talked about, the normal map, we can actually disable that or increase it. So if we don't want the noise from the normal map, we can get rid of it. I really like it, so I'll leave it in there. And then for this moss edge color, this red, we can actually change the colors if we want crazy blue or whatever. We can always do that. It's a bright red. It looks really bad, right? This is meant to be a color like this, but you get the point. And then, of course, we can always set the opacity. Something we like. I like the whole effect. So that's all the parameters we have for this. Now let's take a look at the actual material. Let me close this. So this is the material. Don't be intimidated. This, once again, is a whole scanned asset master material. So all of this, we're just gonna ignore. The only part we're interested in is the moss blend down here. So it really isn't that bad. However, there's a material function in here, which is where the actual blend happens. And that's what we're gonna take a look at first. So just to give you a quick overview of what's happening here, of course this sets our basic material, so I expect you to have a material that consists of a base color, specular, roughness, and normal map value. Once you have that, also if you're interested in seeing our pipeline for our meshes, like for scanned assets, which we have detailed normal mapping that fade over distance, we have some adjustments to color. We actually deprive from our color map our roughness and our specular to kind of keep our textures in check. So if you're interested in that, just let me know. So going back to our Moss blend, we have the blend depending, well, we input our normal map value in here, and we also, oh, I totally forgot that, we can paint this with vertex color, and I have to enable alpha. Now, there we go. So it is 0. We can actually remove the moss, like if we don't want it in a specific spot, but we like the effect overall, we can just remove it this way. So that's what's happening down here. Then we have the moss material itself, and then we have the blend. And this down here is the miscoloration. So let's go through this step by step. So let's create a folder. And I call this moss tutorial. Just a folder where we're going to store all of our stuff. And in here, let's create a material function. So materials and textures, material function. And let's call this moss mf for material function. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. It's supposed to be a material layer, so ml. So I actually have source control enabled, so it kind of gets these weird pop-ups, just so you don't wonder what's going on. So having this opened up, looks like this. And now let's bring in some textures, because of course we need textures for this to work. So I have a moss texture right here that I'm gonna use. So let's and actually it's a texture sample now. That's not what we want. We want a texture object, so let's convert it. So that's our texture object. And what we're gonna do with this, we want this to be world aligned. So we're just gonna use the world aligned texture node. This one. And what we need for this is an input for the texture size. So let's create a scalar by pressing and holding 1 on the keyboard, not console. There we go. There we go. And let's use a value of 1024. Let's put that into our texture size. And of course we need a world position, because we want this texture to be world aligned, right? We want this to always be applied in the correct way to our mesh. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our absolute world position. Search for world position to find this node. And we're gonna multiply that. We're gonna multiply this by a, well, we actually want to multiply it by a scalar value. This is gonna be define our tiling, so how much the material is tiled. But since this is a material function, we can just convert this to a parameter, and we want to change this later on. So let's do a right click and search for an input, function input. And this can be scalar, since this is just a, well, this is just our tiling, right? And in the X, we're gonna input our scaling value. Let's put in something like 10. We can always change this later. And let's use the preview value as default, so it doesn't throw any errors if we don't have anything connected. Now we can use this as our world position. So, and that's actually already our result. So what I like to use is the XYZ texture, because if we just use the Z texture or XY, what we're gonna end up with is a moss that doesn't blend well from the sides, that only blends well from the top or one specific side. And when we use this one, it's almost like 3D planar blending. It isn't completely, but it gets close. So it looks really good at a lot of different angles. Like if there's really steep differences right around the edge of something, maybe we can find something around here. Well, this actually looks pretty good from all angles. We don't have any stretching. God damn, we don't have any stretching, so I can't show it. But there are special cases where some stretching is going to occur, but for the most part, we're fine with this. So if we actually just preview this, we can see. What's going on? This actually looks pretty good already. However, what I find is that getting rid of, let me just paint in my moss again so that I can actually show what I want to show. There we go. That's more like it. So what I find is that moss has this kind of, it's almost glowing. It's really fuzzy, right? It has this nice like this fuzz layer. And so of course we're gonna use the fuzzy shading node. And actually, if you're missing these world aligned texture and fuzzy shading nodes, then I'm really sorry. Then I took them from one of the Epic example projects, and I totally forgot about it. I just noticed that they're uncategorized, so this could be the case. Please let me know in the comments if you can't find them in your if you do a right click and search for them, and I will add annotations on how to find them. They're in one of the example projects from Epic, so they're free to use and they're available through the launcher. So we can get them that way. Just let me know and I'm gonna search for them and I'm gonna let you know where to find them. Anyway, going back to this, we're gonna put our XYZ texture into the base color of our fuzzy shading. And let's actually, no, let's put some values in here, especially for our normal map. So that we have a value for our normal map, of course, we need to have a normal map. So I'm gonna take the normal map that I have for my mouse, put this in here. Once again, I'm gonna convert this to a texture object. This is important because we're using the world aligned texture node and it only takes texture objects. It doesn't take any texture samples. Put this into the texture, once again, texture size, world position, ready to go. And actually, we don't need a world aligned texture node, I'm sorry. What we want is a world aligned normal. There's a difference, so if we look into these, they do some different stuff that I'm not gonna go over because it's fucking complicated. So let's use this one. It has the exact same inputs. Oh, missed one. Oh, world position's down here. So there we go. And we also have to decide whether or not we want this to be in world space. So let's create a static bool. And false is okay for us. Don't want this normal map to be in world space. We want it to be in tangent space because it's getting applied to our mesh. Now, once again, we're going to use the XYZ texture. And we're going to use this for our normal map input in the fuzzy shading. Now, we do have values here for core darkness, power, and edge brightness. If you want to, you can totally play with them. You can create inputs, just like this one, and use them in here. I find that these values are totally fine for moss, so I'm just going to leave them the way they are. So at this point, we can create a make material attributes nodes. Let's put the fuzzy shading into our base color. And also, let's put this normal map right into our normal map slot. Once again, the XYZ texture right into the normal map slot. And let's put these attributes into our output. So, moving on. Actually, let's apply this and save it so that we don't lose our work. Now this would actually already look fine if you just put default values into specular and roughness. However, what I like to do is I like to give some breakup into the specular and roughness, even of the moss, to get some like these nice highlights and darker areas in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move the normal map all the way down here and actually comment this. Press seeing on the keyboard, put in normal. This part up here, I'm gonna comment color. Move this up a bit because we're gonna need some space in here. Now I take this XYZ texture value from the default color and break out float free components. This gives me back the red, green and blue channel. What I want to do now is use the red channel and deprive some specular and some roughness values from it. So what I'm going to do first for the specular is I'm going to increase the power. And what I'm going to use for that is a constant. And well, actually we could use an input, and I guess we could tweak it then. I already know for my texture that a value of 1, so basically not changing anything on the power, works fine. However, for your texture, the result may differ, so you want to create this into an input parameter and change it later on so that you can actually see what it looks like when you have it applied to your game. When you have it applied to your mesh, I'm sorry. And what we have to do then is clamp this value, so that's in a range from 0 to 1. And what I'd like to do here is limit the max 0.5. So this way our specular never goes above 0.5, which is kind of the default value for this material, but it can go below, so we get some dark areas in there. And then let's plug it into our specular. That's basically all. Let's comment this. So spec has some small breakup. If you look at this, you can actually preview it. We have some nice breakup for our specular with some darker areas. Now, what we're gonna do for the roughness is kind of really similar. This works for a lot of materials. For the most part, just for natural materials. Be careful with the specular because it can look really bad. But I like to do this for vegetation and moss and stuff like that. For the roughness, we're gonna use a cheap contrast. And we're gonna use a scalar parameter of 0.1. And once again, if these parameters, let's preview that. If these parameters aren't working for you, you can always change these. Like these are kind of dependent on your texture. This is kind of like, you can also do this stuff in Photoshop if you want to. I just like to do it this way because I only need a base texture and a normal map. You could always create these specular and roughness maps in Photoshop and then just import them. Or you can do it this way and kind of like these values, adjusting them is kind of the same thing you would do in Photoshop with blend layers and stuff like that, right? So that's a little bit of tweaking involved in here to get a nice result. Then I'm gonna clamp this cheap contrast. And I'm gonna use this as an alpha for lerp. Because I like to use this, what we have here, kind of like an alpha for 2 different values that are gonna define my roughness. And for the roughness of the moss, I found that something between 1 and 0.5 works pretty well. So if I preview this, it's kind of like it's a really rough material, right? And that's kind of exactly what I want. So let's put that into our roughness. Where is it? There it is. Let's comment it. So once again, just to break down what I'm doing here, I'm basically creating a mask, an alpha, for these 2 values that actually define my roughness. So I'm using the lerp to use this alpha to blend between these 2 values, and this way I'm getting my roughness. And for the specular, well, I guess I could do the same thing. I just use this as a base point for a clamp. So I'm basically using a very similar alpha to this one down here, and I'm just using a space from 0 to 0.5, and I just clamp everything above that because I don't want any crazy specular values like 1 or even something above that would give crazy glare and stuff like that. Well, that's all we're doing here. that's actually, it's done. Should be done. Let's look at this. If it looks good, then we're ready to keep going. There we go. Now we have this nice fuzz, right? Because we have the fuzz applied over here, and roughness looks good. Everything looks nice. Cool. Let's save this. And now we're ready to apply this to our master material. So going back to the master material, there's a bunch of stuff in here that's not really important for us, so that's everything we have here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this over here, and I'm gonna lead you step by step through what we have created here in a different material that's much more simple. So for this different material, let's create a new material. Or maybe you already have a material that you just want to layer the moss on top, then you can use that. I'm just gonna create one and call this rock blend. I don't know, just making it up. Open this. And now we have our material. And now we need to set up a basic material. It's gonna be really basic. Let's go in here to one of my rocks. Let's just grab these textures. I'm gonna take, yeah, this looks fine. Let's drag and drop them in here and really quickly set up a basic material. We don't want to wrestle it yet, so we're just gonna plug this into a make material attributes node. So we have our base color, we have a normal map, still need some values for roughness. Let's put this at 0.8 or something for rock, I guess. Maybe even higher. Maybe put this at 0.9. It's a really rough rock. I don't know, 8.5, something in between. We don't have metallic specular, this is a rock, so that's actually all we need. So super basic material, might end up looking horrible, but whatever. This isn't really important. The important part comes right now, because we want to blend our moss layer on top of here. So let's go back to our moss layer. Actually, let's just find it in the content browser and drag and drop this material function that we created in our rock. And this is what we get. Get our moss material layer. It has one in. This is our tiling. Actually, we haven't named this. So if you want this to have a proper name, go to your input in scalar and give it a proper name. Something like tiling. So let's create a scalar parameter, plug it in here, give it a tiling of 10. Actually convert this to a parameter and call it tiling. So now we can, in the material instance for this material, control our tiling. And we have our moss layer. Now we're gonna blend this on top of our other material. So let's use a matte layer blend. And we want the default standard one. So where is it? Standard material layer blend standard. Use this as the top layer. And of course we need an alpha. And that's where we get the real fun. Because this is where we use the normal map from our material over here. So you can just use this one and use it for a lerp. Let's put this one, where we're gonna put this, up here. We have this lerp, and we're gonna input this into the B value, and into the A value we're gonna put a free vector. So let's create a free vector by pressing and holding free on the keyboard and clicking, and let's give it a value of 0, 0, and 1. And this is gonna be our A. So the reason I create this is this is a basic null map, I guess. And we're gonna lerp between these depending on the blend normal. So on a parameter that we're gonna create. So let's create this parameter. Let's call it blend normal. And what this is going to cause is this parameter that we can use. Let me show you. this blend normal material, blend normal parameter that kind of makes it blend depending on the normal map, right? So that's what we're doing right now. It's this parameter, and let's put it to 1 for default because it's a nice effect. And why wouldn't you have it? But it's always nice to have control over it. So what we're gonna do with this value is we're gonna use a transform vector node. And because we want to, which one is this transform? We want to get this tangent space normal that we have from up here and convert it into world space, because of course we want this moss to be layered on top of the mesh and not just applied to the normal map in a weird way. So we convert this tangent space to world space with a transform vector. Once again, it's a right click and then it's transform onto vector ops transform. So we get this now. Let's normalize this. And now we want to get a dot product between this and our normal value from over here. Let's use the constant bias scale now. And the result from this, let's preview that. So this has turned, after normalization, that's what it looks like. Kind of a, well, like a well-aligned normal map, right? You can see the colors on the sides. And using the dot product and the constant bias scale gives us like a gradient. A gradient on where we want to apply our moss. So we're gonna use this to lerp. The values we're gonna lerp between, so this is an alpha for this lerp. Let's create two constants. Put this one at -4. And let's convert this one to a parameter. And call it the world blend max. Let's put in a value of 2 or something. Now these two values, you're gonna have to play with them. Once again, this is kind of like using layers in Photoshop. I use this value to kind of define how much of the moss gets blended. It's always easier to show this. A bit down here. So we have the world blend max. At 0, there's nothing. At 1, there's a little bit. 2, there's a little bit more. You see, this is this really nice effect that gives us a lot of control over how we want to blend this. Something like 2 works nice. So this is this value right here. And once again, you might have to play with this different value that you want to lerp between. And now we need to clamp this value, because we want to have this in a value between 0 and 1 and not something crazy like this might give us values above 1 or 0. So we're just going to clamp those. And what I like to do then, create another lerp. And lerp between 0 and this value. And I like to blend between them with the vertex color. Because this, using the alpha, or whatever you like, gives us the option to paint out parts of this moss. So this is, if we go in here and paint it with vertex color, right, we can remove moss from it. That's how we get that. Now, one more node, we're going to use a multiply. And in this multiply, we get another scalar value, defaulted 1. Convert to a parameter, and this is the moss opacity. So moss opacity, and this is the alpha we're going to use over here. Let's wire this in, and this one we can just clicking our material. We can use material attributes and plug it right in here. Now if we stop previewing this value, we should see the moss on our rock. So, and of course only on top of it. So you kind of have to use this preview, like the little sphere, or it's gonna look wrong. And there we see this looks really, really nice. You have the moss on top. Down here it fades out and it disappears completely. This is what we want. And let's just apply this so that we can actually look at it in a mesh in our viewport. I'm gonna quickly search for the mesh that is using these textures, or it's gonna look really wrong. Or actually, I think we might have used the correct one anyway. Like, let me try this. Select all of these and apply it to them. Bam. Fantastic. It's the exact same thing. Cool. So, these are the rocks with the material applied to them. And they look almost the way that we did before. The only thing still missing is this red line, this red detail around the edge of the moss. And I've actually decided to move this to a different tutorial because I noticed, and I wasn't aware of that I used a custom material layer node. Let me bring over my scanned asset master material where it's already applied. I use a custom node called Musk Edge for this that I've created, and this actually is a bit more complicated. And I'm gonna show you how to do this in the next tutorial, or just let me know if you're interested. I can send high-risk screenshots, or I guess you can actually take a look at it now. That's all it is. And right here. So if you're really interested, you can just build it going from this information. Otherwise, I can create another tutorial for it. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in this red edge color. And besides that, this effect is already really cool. Like, this is the really important effect of it. And this video is going on for a while, so I'm gonna end it right here. Like and subscribe if you liked the video and if you're interested in more tutorials like this. Also, let me know if there are any other tutorials you're interested in. Also, stay tuned for our game Sane, because we're crunching on the first final art for one of the environments right now. So we're gonna be able to share something on that really soon, like end of this month soon. Or actually, it's still December, right? So end of next month, I'm sorry, end of January. And yeah, looking really forward to sharing more of that with you. Check out our Twitter if you haven't. Like, we're gonna share stuff there. We're gonna give updates and when we're gonna release tutorials. And yeah, I see you in the next tutorial. Have fun creating the shader, and bye bye.